Hello there, Lee Thurman back with you on Live Stream Lee. Thank you for joining me again today. Today we're going to continue our development of a multi-vendor cell phone app that works a lot like Etsy. So I've already described this. You're probably kind of up to speed because hopefully you've been watching some of the prior videos. But we're using a really powerful and interesting technology called Adalo.com to do this. We're developing cell phone apps. Now, Apricot Rocket, which is my day job, if you will, is a software platform that I've been building for a while. It's powerful. It does a lot of things. In fact, we use it as the storage area for the Adalo apps when people add things and themselves to the apps. But it has taken me quite a long time to develop because it is written directly in code, and I've had to hire experienced developers. Now, the interesting thing about Adalo, it is part of what's called a no-code platform sort of spectrum. There's a lot of different technologies out there that use no-code, and they're very rapid development. They build some incredibly powerful website technologies, interactive technologies, interactive websites and cell phones and so on. And it has dramatically reduced the development time on software. It's a really pretty cool thing. So why is this important to you? Well, at Livestream we talk about things that'll help you grow your business faster, get more customers, make you more profitable. And if you're in the technology world, there's probably nothing more important than rapidly and inexpensively developing high quality software. And so Adalo and Bubble and a variety of different technologies that have recently come onto the market in the last couple of years have changed the landscape. And so what I'm doing now is showing you step by step how to use Adalo to build an app. Not so much because I want you to try to build this app yourself, though if you want to, by all means do so. But because I want you to understand the dynamic of the shifting dynamic of how you build things and why the price for cell phone apps is literally either already or about to fall through the floor. And we are now offering cell phone apps that are incredibly powerful for extremely low prices because of what I'm about to show you. So let's go ahead and begin with continue with the development of this app. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so what do? Remove, actually click here. There we go. So now you are seeing the demo. And what you're looking at on screen right now is I think of it as the schematic for the flow of how the app works. And these are a series of cell phone screens that have functionality built into them that are connected by logic. The first 4 screens that you see here are basically your introduction. You start with a splash screen, which is what is launched when somebody clicks the icon on their phone. And then from there, you either sign up, or if you already have an account, you log in. And from there, you land on a home screen. And from the home screen, you click a variety of buttons and you go places. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Here's the home screen. And you can edit a profile, view a profile, add a product, view products, add a vendor, view vendors. And then, whoops, I'm going the wrong direction. So if you decide to view a vendor profile, you come to the vendor profile. If you want to, now you actually have already created your account. So if you want to edit your profile, you don't have to go through an account creation process. So if you want to edit your profile, it takes you to this screen. And then in this stack right here, we have products. And you can either view a list of products, which happens here. You can add a product, or if you need to edit a product, you can edit a product. This is the product detail page. And if you decide to delete a product, it gives you a warning screen to make sure that you intend to actually delete the product. The last thing that we built so far was a list of vendors. And when somebody wants to become a vendor, at this point in time, we just simply let them click on a link and they can add themselves as a vendor. That then places them into the vendor list. And then from the vendor list, if they need to edit their vendor account, they can click on an edit little pencil icon, and they can go to the edit vendor process. Now, we've kept all of the data extremely simple so far because we don't want to confuse you with a lot of data. Things like images and addresses and stuff like that, they're not really critically important to the flow of the process. And so what we've been doing is focusing attention on building the flow of the process. And we're going to continue that today. So what we're going to look at today is we're actually going to add a vendor detail page, and then we're going to give vendors the ability to delete themselves, and we're going to create a warning again for delete vendor warning. And then we're going to begin the process of sort of fleshing out the look and feel. And on Monday, my plan, depending upon how far we get, is on Monday, we'll go ahead and give this app the ability for the app owner to sell a vendor option. In other words, somebody that wants to be a vendor, you may, if you own the app, you may either want to grant them permission. You may want to there's basically the following choices. You can just let them become a vendor without any kind of gating at all, or you can let them want to become a vendor and they have to go into a pending status for you to approve their vendor status. Now, you can make that approval based upon anything that you want to, including whether they've paid you. If you want to automate the payment process, we can put them into a pending approval after they've paid you, where you then go in and approve them to be added to your vendor list. And so we're gonna go through those things, and we're also going to make the products purchasable, directly, through a shopping cart process. Those things will take the better part of next week to get all of that done. So today we're going to focus on adding a vendor detail page. Okay, so let's zoom in on this vendor list. And here we have a custom list. That's what the yellow box has highlighted here, is a custom list. And if I just click down here in this area, you're going to see that it's a list of vendors, and it shows all vendors. And right now, if you click anywhere on the list, it takes you to a product detail. But since this isn't a list of products, the system isn't going to show any detail. It'll actually just show you a blank screen. So we do not yet have a vendor detail page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, and I'm going to take you to a screen where you get a new screen, because see, we have, if I come down here, you'll see there's product detail, product list, but there's no vendor detail. There's no vendor list. There's only add a vendor. You can't link to yourself. That's why you don't see vendor list. So if I come over here and I scroll up, you see it says vendor list. Well, we're on the vendor list page. You can't link to your own page. So that's why that's not an option. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to a new screen, and we're going to call this vendor detail. All right, and I'm just going to, like we normally do, I'm just going to add a blank screen, create screen. And if I back up, you'll see that the system always puts new screens at the upper right-hand corner. So I'm going to zoom in. Now I want to put this screen down below because I like to put sort of the main screens on sort of the main screen line. So I'm just going to put it right here, put a little gap in between them, because I'm going to put other things around it. So this is the vendor detail page, and this links from the vendor list to the vendor detail page. So on a vendor detail page, you're going to want a number of things. First, you're going to want a vendor image. So let's go ahead and come over to the left and go to our components, scroll down, grab an image, and just slide it over. And we're going to put it at the top of the page here. And I'm actually going to leave room for a little header space. So I'm going to put the vendor image there, and I'm going to click on database, current vendor. Well, gosh, there's no vendor image. Let's go ahead now and begin the process of adding a little bit more information about vendors, since we're adding vendor detail page. Okay, so I'm just clicking off, and I'm going to go open the database section. I'm going to click on vendors, And now we're going to see what we have in the way of vendors. Well, we have a vendor name, a Ven user, which is a connection, a relationship to the user database. And we have Ven products, which is a relationship connection to the products database. But that's all we've got. So let's add a couple more things. I'm going to add a property called an image, and I'm going to call this Ven image. And so now we've added an image. And while we're here, let's add some other things. We're going to add a text field for Ven address. And we'll put the street information there. And let's just go ahead and put a few more things. Ven city. Whoops, let's get that spelled right. Ven city. Add a property for another text property for Ven state. And let's add a number property for Ven zip code. And let's also add a property for vendor phone number. All right, so I've added those things now, Ven zip, phone, and so on. So I've got that information added. So now I can come back over here and I can click on this image that I added to the vendor detail. And now if I go to select database current vendor, I can add Ven image. Well, if I go back to my vendor list, there's an image. If I click on this right here, there's an image. And look what it says. It says current product image. And that's because if you remember, we just copied the list from the products page, moved it over, and we didn't change anything except for over here it's called a list of products, and over here I just renamed it to a list of vendors. But the data fields inside, like this image, didn't change. So I'm going to change it to current vendor image, and then I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. Here I've already changed it to vendor Ven name, but this says price, so I don't want price on the vendor because you're not buying the vendor. So I'm just going to back all that out. I'm going to click the magic text button. I'm going to go to current vendor, and I'm going to put the address in. And so that'll be the address line. And then I'm going to highlight the next one, which is product description. I'm going to change that to current vendor city. And you know what? I'm actually going to make a little bit more room here. So I'm actually going to double click on this graph over here to the right and grab this little panel and pull it down just a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and pull the vendor image down. I'm going to make it a little bit larger. And we're going to move the vendor name up and the vendor address up and the vendor city up. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so that I can space these evenly spaced. Now I'm just going to copy Ven city, copy C or Control C, Control V. And I'm going to do it again. Let's see. So I'm going to put state and zip on the same line. And then I'm going to put phone down here. Okay. So I've got vendor city. So now I'm going to highlight the second vendor city, which was a copy, and I'm going to make it state. So current vendor state. And then I'm going to do current vendor zip for the next one. And I'm going to move it up because there should be enough room for them to be on the same line. So I'm going to do it current vendor zip. Now I'm going to shorten this because that's only going to be, 5 digits, right? I'm going to take the state and I'm going to make it shorter. Cities can be kind of long, but I'm going to take the vendor zip and I'm going to move it up the same line as vendor state and move it over so that you see they kind of nest up against each other. And so we're going to have vendor name, address, city, state, zip, and let's put the phone number down below. So Control C, Control V. I'm going to move this down and I'm going to change this to current vendor phone. And now here's the interesting thing about phones. I'm going to click on the phone panel and you're going to see that the number format is default. Well, if you actually look at the number format, you have some choices. Default is going to have commas. Well, you don't want commas in a phone number because the commas are like dollar commas. There's, not even dollar, well, they're like just number commas. And so you go to none, means there's no commas. If you do abbreviated, you have some different different things, but you know what you don't have? You do not have a phone number format layout. Well, that'll be for a future video, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say none, and so we're going to give the format a none. All right, so now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to zoom out and then zoom back in. So here's our vendor information. And now, just to make things easy on myself, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to highlight these numbers. Actually, let me go ahead and zoom in, and let me move over just a little and move up just a little. I'm going to highlight these data fields, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to highlight all of these, and I'm going to get the VIN. Now I'm going to do Control C, and I'm going to come over and I'm going to highlight the panel, vendor detail, and I'm going to do Control V, put them in, and I'm just going to drop them down here. So what I just did is I just saved all of my formatting. So I saved all of my vendor information with the links and formatted, and I dropped them in over on the right-hand side. A little trick to speed things up when you get your vendor detail. Okay, well, let's zoom in, zoom out. So if all we're going to show in the vendor detail is exactly the same thing we show in the vendor list, there's really no need for the vendor detail. So wouldn't it be nice to be able to go to the vendor detail and see all of the products that a vendor has attached to the vendor in their vendor detail page? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this product list. Well, before I do that, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to highlight the vendor detail page, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull the page down a little bit more. Now, you don't have to do this, but it makes it easier. You actually, on a cell phone, you just swipe up and you have unlimited real estate, below you. But because it makes it a little easier to work with these elements, I wanted to give a little more space. So I'm going to highlight the products list, and I'm going to do Control C, and then I'm going to come over and I'm going to click on the vendor detail. I'm going to do Control V for paste, and now I'm going to move the whole product box down at the bottom. And so what this is going to end up being is a list of the products just for the vendor. All right, now this can get a little tricky, especially if you're copying things from another place. Okay, so this list field right here, you can see over on the left is products, all products. Well, we don't want all products. We just want the products for the current vendor. So let's come up here and let's click on vendor detail. And now let's look at the data that we've caught by going down here to available data. And we have current vendor data on this page. Okay, that's because from the vendor list, when we click on a selected vendor, it goes to the vendor detail and it carries the current vendor from the list to the detail page. And that way, the image and everything else, all the names are going to be correct for the current vendor. And because this product list page is in there, it can be as well, but we just copied and pasted, so it's not yet correct. And the reason it's not yet correct is over here where it says list, it's products, all products. Now, this can get a little tricky. So what we're going to do is we're going to click, and we're going to click on, it's going to say current vendor products. Okay, so we're selecting products, but only the current vendor products. Now, if in a situation like this, if you do not have the current vendor products as an option, it's going to be because you've confused the system as to what kind of information is on this page. And the way that often happens is by you linking multiple different pages to this page, which can cause the page register, the memory of what is on that page. It can cause the page register to get confused about what kind of data the page has. So one of the reasons I like to develop the sort of the schematic, skinny version of the links is because when you start fleshing out and making everything look pretty and put lots of back buttons and footer panels and navigation panels and all that kind of stuff in, you can really confuse things when you get when you get a lot of stuff going on, a lot of connections back and forth. But at this point, this is pretty simple. So let's go ahead now and look and see what we've got. Let's go ahead and test what we've just done. So I'm going to click on preview. And it's loading, so it'll let me get here. So I'm still logged in. I'm not actually sure who I'm logged in as. I'm probably logged in as myself. So I'm going to go ahead and click on View Products. Okay, so I can go from View Products to the Product Detail page. And of course, from here, I can edit products. Now, I don't have a link to the vendor from here, but that's okay. Now, I don't have a back button anywhere on this page. So what I'm doing is I'm using the back button on my browser to go backwards. So back buttons are one of those things that it's nice to have, but we haven't fleshed that out yet. That can actually cause things to be a little bit confusing until you have your basic development in hand. So let's go ahead and click on View Vendors. So here's our vendors. We have ABC drilling and our XYZ drilling and ABC drilling. So if I click on XYZ drilling, I go to the XYZ drilling detail page and there's nothing there. Okay, so we've got something broken or missing. So let's go debug that. All right, so here's the vendor detail page. And when I don't actually have an easy way to edit vendors, here's a vendor detail. Actually, I could so I could use this edit button from the vendor page and I could go in and I could edit. So let's do this. Let's go to the edit vendor screen. This is vendors, update current vendors. Let's give it all of the data fields, because the data fields, when we originally created it, the only data field was the vendor name. So now we're in the screen where you can create a form, and we're going to add a bunch of visible fields. We're going to add vendor address, and we're not going to make it required. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then we're going to add vendor city. And again, we're not going to make it required. You could do that yes or no. We're going to do vendor state. Now, as we do these things, we get a shorter and shorter list of stuff. So vendor zip, we're going to add that, not required. And we're going to then add vendor phone, and we're going to do not required. And I like to put the image at the bottom of the list because it's just so big. So I put the image down at the bottom, and I'm not going to make that required. But what we're going to do is we're going to go in and edit. Now, notice how this yellow box for the input field goes way down. It actually goes down and kind of hovers over the vendor list. And so you've got to be aware of that issue. It's not a problem really, as long as you're aware of it. So what you just want to do is you want to click somewhere in the background and remove it. Then you can click on this box and you can edit this box. But if you're not careful, you can end up kind of moving things around and doing things that you don't intend to do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click preview. Okay, let's try that again. Click preview. And now we're going to wait for it to load. I'm going to click on View Vendors. And looky here, I can view ABC and XYZ. So let's just go ahead and click on XYZ. So let's go 123 Main Street. And we'll do Frisco, Texas, 75034. Phone number 123-456-7777. And let's grab an image of a vendor. So I'm just going to click on the image tool. This would, of course, be a phone or what have you. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to this folder, and I'm just going to grab the word business and a button that says business, and I'm going to click update vendor. Now, when I click update vendor, that takes me back to the vendor screen. Looky here, what I got. I got all this stuff. Now let's click on this, and look here, I've got all this data here, but I don't have anything other than the vendor image. Okay, well, we're making progress. So let's go ahead and X out. Now we're going to come over to the vendor list, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over into the center, and then I'm going to zoom in. And let's look and see what we have here for vendor name. We've got vendor name. If I click on it, current vendor, vendor name. Well, that should be the current vendor name. I'm not sure why we don't have it. Let's go to current vendor name. So we should have that current vendor address. Let's click on it, current vendor address. So why are we not getting the information? I don't know. Okay, so we're going to have to debug that. Okay, so here we've got product name and all that. So let's look here. We've got current product image. Okay, current product. Is that what we want? So let's see what we got here. We've got database, current vendor, products vendor. Let's see. That looks like that just goes on forever. Okay, so that's vendor image, current product image. That should be right. Product name, current product name. So this is a list. Let's go look at the list. This is a list of the products, the current vendor products. All right, so it seems like we should have the information here that we're looking for. So let's go in again. Oh, you know what? We could have an issue with the database. Before I go any farther, let's go consider that. Over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to go to database, and we got vendors. Let's go look at products. Okay, I'm going to look at one product, and I just want to see, okay, looky here, product vendor. We don't have the product connected to a vendor. And if I go over, that's it. So that's why we don't have this product listed. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can fix this. And so the easy way is just to click, and if we scroll down, we could add a product, or there's the product image. We could add a product vendor here by going select, and I'm going to do ABC drilling. So now we have a product vendor. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go done. And let's go in and look at our vendors and see who we have in the way of vendors. So I'm going to click on vendor records, and we come over and we have, all right, so I'm going to look at everything. We've got Ven user, we've got the correct user, we've got one product, we've got one image. Okay, I think we're in good shape. So we're going to go ahead and click done. Now we're going to do preview. And from preview, we're going to go to view vendors. And let's go ahead and click on XYZ. Now we've got XY, there we go. Now we've got the products, but for some reason we don't have the address and stuff. Well, it might be that I just have to reestablish those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go to vendor address. I'm going to remove vendor address. I'm just going to do current vendor address, then vendor state, remove that one, and we're going to do current vendor state. Then oh, that's supposed to be vendor city, right? Current vendor city, current vendor city. Then we're going to remove the existing. Then we're going to do current vendor state, and then we're going to do get rid of zip and do current vendor zip, and then we're going to do vendor phone, current vendor phone. Now we've reestablished those database connections. Now we're going to do a preview, and we're going to go in and we're going to view vendors, click on, and now we're going to go here, and all of our vendor information is in here. But look at this phone number. This phone number is 1234,567,777. So we're going to change that format of the phone. So I'm going to double click here or click there, and I'm going to go into none. And we're just going to go ahead and do that. And then we're going to go back in. So we've taken the commas out of the formatting, go to the view vendor. And now I'm going to go here, and you're going to see that it looks kind of like a regular phone number, except for there's no formatting to it. So we're going to talk about formatting. We might get to that on Monday. We're actually out of time now, so I'm going to stop here. We've basically added a vendor profile page to our sequence or set of pages. We've done a little debugging so that you can see how problems can arise. And that's it for today. So we're out of time. I'm going to go ahead and just come back over, and let's see here. We're going to remove that. I'm going to say thank you for joining today. Be sure and come back on Monday when we'll do another 30-minute build, and we'll just continue the process. And you can do the same thing. Hopefully you're following along on Adalo and playing with it, and creating some fun stuff of your own. Okay, cheers. We'll see you next week.